I grew up, I'm 49 in October, and I grew up watching NWA every Saturday morning. We had cartoons, and as soon as cartoons was over, NWA comes on.
I love it.
I had a couple buddies lived up the street from me, about 6 houses. We had the paper belts. We made them ourselves. We had all the moves. Watched your dad wrestle a million times. And the Four Horsemen and Magnum TA was my guy.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and such a heartbreaker when he was injured. But I grew up on that kind of wrestling, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder, when you were a kid, right, and your dad is that, I think you talk about that a little bit, like getting the VCR out or getting the tapes out or going on YouTube. And so how do you sort of educate yourself, I guess, on your family's legacy, your dad's history, what the business and what it is today versus what it was with the NWA and all that back then, right? How did you do that? How did you educate yourself?
It was around the time you start, like those formative, you starting to remember things and that part of your life. A lot of parents in the neighborhood we lived in, I didn't think anything different about my dad. I didn't ask him what he did I didn't think anything different. He was just dad. The parents would be really either very excited about him being in the neighborhood or, we lived in kind of a snooty area. Wrestling, was lowbrow to them. Wrestling. There was a Braves commentator who was on the other side of the neighborhood. He was the big celebrity, and then we were kind of Addams Family to some people. Especially, he'd go to the pool and he'd wear. And again, I didn't really get it. Like he'd wear his trunks, classic DR trunks, Ray-Bans. That his head was so big, the Ray-Bans would barely be on, but also now they're stuck on. He'd go, and he was 300 something pounds, go on the diving board, do this huge dive, just make a scene for all these parents at the pool. And I don't know, I got from them is where I first started realizing he does something different. And I got really early on, got very protective of him because he was 39 when he had me. Older, career had already happened. I had 2 kids, 3 kids already at this point. So I became very protective because he was in this place where he was semi-retired. There was still a lot of love for him, but he was also behind the scenes. He was in that managerial role. And the real way I educated myself was exactly what you said. This Blockbuster Video had in the South, we had a wrestling section, and it was WWF, and then there was the WCW stuff, and I was watching current WCW, but I needed to go back NWA, territory stuff, whatever remained of it, and see why he was this luminary figure, and it blew me away.
Right.
Blew me, off in the blood, but then just, even at a young age, I thought, I'm really proud of him. It was a weird kind of, I still have it to this day, protective nature of him. But yeah, that was just mind-blowing to me to see Greensboro Coliseum sold out, losing their mind. Just blew my mind. It seemed like every match I watched was him and Flair. All the big pay-per-views, Flair, and they were such different, juxtaposed so differently against one another. Oh my gosh. But that was nice. And then at the time, wrestling was not as popular as it is today, and not as popular as it got in the late 90s. So in the late 80s, early 90s, I was just the one kid who knew about wrestling. So I had to find the other kids at school. Like, you're into that? Oh, okay, I got stuff. So yeah.
So yeah, I felt like, it's probably not real reality, but I felt like, in the 80s, like shooting promos and stuff. Your dad and Flair and those guys, like that was the whole show on Saturday morning was them in front of the microphone. And there was a couple wrestling matches, but it was really just them talking. It doesn't seem like when you look back that they kind of created the promo, like the value of the promo, right? And the ability. Then it became like who can do it better, your dad was one of the best, right? So I think that I find that's. We always talk about the the toughest part of the broadcast on the race is the 10 seconds of live TV where we're actually on the screen, right? And so the promo, how hard is the promo versus the actual rest of the job? The promo to me looks like the most important moment, right? And so how much of that are you working on? How much of that are you really crafting yourself? Can you believe that we've had 7 months without an NFL game? Well, good thing that's finally over. The NFL is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you get. Download now and use code DJD to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code DJD only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours.
The promo in the sports entertainment and pro wrestling space, and you mentioned this, that WCW in the 80s and Saturday morning, and then we become Saturday night. It was almost like it was a commercial for the show that was going to be coming to you. They're just talking about, and there are these couple what we'd call enhancement matches or real quick moments. And then they got back, and you'd have your big players out there to do their interviews. The promo. Here's the best way to look at it is there's so many great wrestling matches. Really, I love a wrestling match. I do go back and watch a full match. Most of the time, the memories, moments that we're connected to aren't an actual match. Dusty, for example, Hard Times, this promo he did, that's typically what most people will bring up and talk about and get into. They're not actually talking about the match that it referenced. Like I can get to, here at the gathering they did this, and the finish was a small package out of the figure 4. I remember, but there's a good chunk of fans that connect to the promo, and the reason is my dad used to teach promos at NXT, which is the developmental system for WWE, but he never called it promos. He called it communications class. But I got what he meant years kind of into him doing it. His idea of communicating was connecting. Sure. That's really what it was. You can do all, like today, there's so many cool, what we would call high spot flips and crazy athleticism. But if they don't care about you, it's like watching fireworks. They did it. We've seen it. We don't, and he had the ability to make them care about him or at least dislike his opponent or that. That's the most important thing. And I have a wrestling school now in McDonough, Georgia, and that's my favorite day. And it feels like the only day I have anything to really even offer him. The rest of it, I'm just winging it. All right, take a hip toss. Here we go. That's so important, and a lot of people today don't want to work on it. Yeah. And I understand, like this. You see what you see on TV, and guys doing all this really athletic stuff, but it's not something that people want to work on that much. I have gotten in the habit of I overwork on them. There's a whole WWE, again, a lot of structure. There's a whole brain trust. There's a writer, there's a voice memo of what I'd like to say. Then it goes back and we go back and forth on it, back and forth. Then there's these really great luminary figures, legends that are backstage at WWE who they'll chime in and they'll have an idea. And I've been very lucky at WWE that people like these interviews and like these moments, and they're very different from Dusty's. There's not the soul there that Dusty presented. There's almost a political campaign element to how I do an interview. They're very different, and they have to be. Sure. It can't be him,
Was his natural, or did he also take the deliberate intention to craft that? Because he was known for his charisma and the working man, and you could identify. I just wondered if that was just something that was natural to him, or if he recognized the opportunity to represent the a whole body of people.
It's very much something he crafted.
Okay.
And not a lot of people knew this. His documentary, they did a documentary on A&E about him recently, and I was so glad that this information got in there. But my dad modeled a lot after a wrestler named Thunderbolt Patterson. Mm-hmm. And Thunderbolt Patterson, this is a lot of guys did this. You know, Hogan took from superstar Billy Graham. There wasn't a lot of footage, so you could steal and pluck, and there wasn't, you know, going to be such a callback to today. You can't even do like a song quote. Until somebody's, you know, that's all they're calling out on social. So you have to be a little bit different today. But he very much crafted it. And the voice, you know, the way he spoke, which was kind of like with the lisp and the like a deeply pronounced lisp, which the rib is. I ended up getting a legit lisp. But anyways, he
lucky you.
Yeah, right. I would hear him in the mornings. He'd do radios in the mornings, and there was a huge difference between how he would speak to me, like driving to school,
at home.
And then all of a sudden I'd hear him down there, and like it was very crafted, and he knew what it was, and he could get away with doing, because it was so ridiculous, often how Dusty talked and presented, he could get away with doing very little. Like he could come out there with, we call them today, no new information promos. It's the dreaded thing. It was like, I'm not telling them it's a cage match. We're not getting into a fight. Oh my gosh, no information. He was the master at those, because they just wanted to have fun with him.
Yeah.
And like giggle and laugh and have this charismatic moment. And that was, again, he could connect to him and communicate, but very crafted. He was very different as a football coach and as a dad. But when I try to explain that to fans today, they will not have any of it. They want to think of him. That was who he was. And I totally get it. Yeah.
So we were really lucky to have Stone Cold come visit us a couple years ago. And we talked to him about promos, and he talked about how much of a work it was in progress, right, from when he started to where he ended up. And if when you having your school where you're able to sort of see these kids come in and these younger or these rookies come in, is being able to do a promo, right? Is that do you see it immediately in some people, like they just got the charisma, and but can it be trained? Can it be something you acquire over time, right?
I would say it can definitely be something that can be trained, because I always jokingly, but it's kind of true, tell people I didn't get a lot of, like, I'm like my mom. My brother ended up, my brother's 6'6". He just reminds me so much of Dad. He got this unbelievable athleticism. Yeah. I kind of didn't take any of that. So for me, especially following in the footsteps of Dad, I've had to work on it. I continue to work on it. It's so important. So it can be trained. And if you have a good mentor, NXT had Dusty. There's certain guys at WWE who have Paul Heyman, who's another master on the mic. It can be, but the best is when you combined it. When someone has the natural gift. That's what we see a lot. Even rookies, undersized, don't know anything about anything yet. They're just growing into themselves. You can tell right away, just when they start speaking, there's something that I want to hang on to about what this kid is saying, this girl is saying, this guy is saying. So that's the best, when you can have it, but not bank on having it. Hey, I have it, but I want to work on it now. I want to get it better, because it's so important.